Welcome everybody to the No Labels, No Walls plus We Are One 2020 festival. I greet you all, people around the world. We are live airing from Finland, from Scotland, from LA, 100 events, 6 days, 10 countries, and a lot of people. So welcome to the Finnish Association of Native Language Teachers and Larissa Aksinovic. I'm so glad that you are with us today.
Hello. Good evening to, hi Cindy. Good evening to everyone. Good evening to those who have evening today at this moment, and probably some morning time to those who have morning, experiencing morning right now. I'm Larissa. I'm the chairperson of a Finnish Association of Native Language Teachers. And we deal with teaching native languages to students and heritage language to students whose first language is something else than Finnish. So, and it is happening within the Finnish schooling system and during the school day. And I'll be talking today about how is it held, what was the history of teaching native languages in Finland. I'll shortly introduce our association as well. And in the end of the presentation, I will talk about supporting other ways of supporting immigrant children and children with immigrant background within the Finnish schooling system, and talk a little bit about how Finnish as a second language is being taught in schools to support children. Probably I'm glad that I have arrived here like 7 minutes before my presentation actually has started, because I could see and experience how relaxed you were, guys. So I'm not so stressed anymore. So I would have to hold my presentation myself. And then I got some sign language from my family here that I can actually use headphones and stop screaming here in the kitchen. Okay, but let's see. I'll have to share my screen. Okay. Okay, this one probably. Can you see it okay? Yeah, good. Well, we have another hour to speak about these topics. Mostly I thought that I would present it in some way, and then we would have some time to discuss all of those things in the end of the presentation. Just have some discussion. I myself, I am a native language teacher. I live and teach in the same place. It's Tuusula, it's nearby the capital of Helsinki, like 40 kilometers away, 1 hour by bus. And I teach Estonian and Russian. So I'm bilingual myself. I originally come from Estonia, but I've been living in Finland for 6.5 years. So I can teach both languages. And I have my teacher education from Estonia. So what kind of support do students with an immigrant background get in the Finnish school system? First of all, they get instruction preparing for basic education. It sounds very tricky, but actually what it means that students that have just freshly arrived to Finland get 1 year of sort of integrational education, preparing themselves. They study Finnish, and then they get some general studies as well, and then they get some integrational subjects. So most of the time they spend within their small group of other immigrant children and study Finnish, and then they have some lessons where they can actually they can practice their Finnish within a large general Finnish speaking class. Then they get Finnish as a second language. It is being graded all separately, and they had this extra supportive Finnish language classes when they get into this general classes themselves. So most of immigrant background children get this additional Finnish as a second language classes as on the regular basis. But those who have actually mastered their Finnish already, then they can just quit those classes and they do not take them anymore. Then in Finnish schools, they have instruction of native languages, which is what I teach myself. I've been thinking about what kind of term should I use. Often they say that heritage languages, but well, we speak those languages as native speakers, so I prefer like native languages, and it's Europe, so we probably don't have this specific cultural background of native people. So these terms do not mix up with me. And actually in Finnish core curriculum, national curriculum in Finland, they have this translation of this book, and they actually use mother tongue as the term to speak about these languages. Then they have instruction of religion. So if there are enough children, they can form a group so children would be able to study their own religions at school, for instance, Orthodox or Catholic or whatever other religions. But it means probably depends on the number of children living in that municipality. If there isn't enough children, then the group wouldn't be opened. And then they get some part-time special needs education as well, if needed, because sometimes they have problems with acquiring the second language, and sometimes they actually do have some special needs as well. So it's not only the language, but they probably have some special needs when speaking or writing or reading their own mother tongue. Okay, some history. Actually, this native instruction of students' native languages started in the 70s, and first it applied to refugee children from Chile. And later on, other children were able to go to these classes as well in the 90s. And we have now this new curriculum. I have actually a book here. It's pretty large. This one is in English. Been studying it for a while. And in this newest curriculum, 2016, instruction of native languages was thought to be of high importance. And nowadays, there are about 50 different native languages taught. I think it was maybe 55. And there are about 150 languages spoken in Finland as the first language. And more than 21,000 students actually participate in these classes. I think it was 21,200 last year or something. So it has been growing. The number of the students participating has been growing all the time. So what are the main terms? And sometimes people ask why these native languages, and students' own religions are being taught in Finland, and why bother at all? Who cares? So is the family's problem why it should be taught within the Finnish school? Some people speaking about taxes as well, so they spend a lot of taxes on. Well, actually, they probably don't, and it is seen at some point as a support to all the students, and it is believed that students should get proper support while they learn and study in the basic school, so they get a good basis, and later on they would become better learners and better employees as well. So we're not actually spending taxes, but we are building a good basis for students to go further in their life. So here we are talking about basic rights, identity, and integration. According to the Finnish law, native languages or a native language is the basic right of a student. It is the language of your heart, your thinking, and your identity. And it's also important to find your place within the chain of generations. That means respecting your family, being comfortable with your family, being comfortable with your grandparents, and actually here where the identity comes, not being ashamed of your family and not being ashamed of speaking your language, not being ashamed to speaking your language in public and so on. So it's quite a lot and a big deal. Strong native language skills is seen as the key concept of integration. That means if the student or a child doesn't really speak his own language, he would have problems acquiring the second language, which is Finnish. And if he doesn't know roots, his own roots, it would be hard to become keen on some other culture or to get acquainted to some other culture and see why people respect and love their own culture, their own roots. And linguistic diversity is seen as the main concept at schools. So here's some basic and general terms about this new national core curriculum for basic education. 2016. There are 7 key competencies from the first one to the 7th. For instance, taking care of oneself and others and managing daily activities. And this is also where your first language plays an important role. Because you cannot take care of yourself or other people if you don't know who you are. The cultural competences, this is all this being multicultural. Multiliteracy, being able to read critically different texts, compare different sources, and actually that's where your first language is also important. If you are able to read media in your own language and get the information at once and pretty fast, so you can compare different articles, different sources at the same time. For instance, if I search for some information, I have I can read it in Russian, then I compare it in Estonian, then I look through the Finnish media sources. If needed, then I look for a search for English information as well. And I don't have to spend a lot of money and ask people to translate it to me. For instance, that if you work as a journalist in the future or whoever, with texts, with different cultures, different backgrounds, then it's really important. Then ICT competence, competence of world of work, and being able, and they speak about careers from the very beginning in the primary school already, and participation and influence and building the sustainable future. It is about ecological way of thinking as well, and being able to think critically about the future. So these are those are like general terms. Uh, so now we go back to this multicultural education, and multilingualism is seen as a very important thing at school, and global education is seen as a must. So every teacher is actually supposed to include some kind of global topics in her teaching. So it can be connected to ecology or whatever, but global education is seen as a must, and students have to learn interaction skills, respectful attitudes towards others, equality, and so on. So, but some nowadays statistics from teaching native languages in Finland. As I have mentioned in previously, first of all, it started in the 70s and applied to refugee children from Chile. Okay, I think it's a double. It looks like a double to me. Then I skip this one. Yes, that's the right slide. Now we have population of Finland 5.6 million. It varies some from time to time, but mostly it's like 5 and something million people living here. About 7% have immigrant background, and I think it's increasing. Number of languages spoken in Finland, different mother tongues, and in the national core curriculum for basic education, they are seen actually as mother tongues, and it is explained that mother tongues can be all different. 150 different languages are being spoken in Finland, and the largest minority language groups are Russian, Estonian, Arabic, and Somali. And when I tried to search for students participating in these native language lessons, then I got some shift here. So we have still Russian as the largest group. Then we got Arabic, Somali, and Estonian students are not that much active in participating in this mother tongue lessons. Have no idea what is the reason for that. Well, probably I can guess Estonian is the closest language to Finnish, Finno-Ugric language, and a lot of families I have communicated to thought that it's okay, we speak it at home, and yes, our children can speak Estonian, it's okay. So the Estonian is not seen as an academic language for them or worth being academic. So it's enough to speak it in the kitchen at home, which is a pity actually, because a strong mother tongue or strong native language means that the student or the child has actually a really good basis. It has to be strong academically as well. So the child should be reading and writing this language, being able to read some harder articles, books, and different texts, and being able to explain himself or herself fluently. And speaking the language only in the kitchen doesn't mean you would achieve all of that. Okay, so now how does it work in practice? Where do we teach? Whom do we teach? And so on. So fitting native language lessons into everyday schooling system, it is actually this is a subject supporting general basic education. That means it's not really an official subject within a national core curriculum, but it is a supportive subject. So it's something in between a hobby and a subject, school subject. That means it's not a Sunday school. It's totally different in Finland. I think they have something similar in Sweden as well, but not in other countries. So in other countries, they also try to support, and sometimes governments would give money to support the Sunday schools, but those lessons are maybe every Saturday, or maybe it's once a month. Here in Finland, we have 2 hours a week, so children have a right to to learn their native language 2 hours a week. Usually they are double classes and last for an hour and a half, so 45 and 45 minutes. And it is during the school day. Sometimes those lessons are placed in the morning before the students' actual lessons start, or sometimes it's later after the lessons, and it also depends how many students do we have in this school, the language speakers. If there are not enough language speakers of this particular language, then it can be pretty possible that those lessons would be pretty late at night. So children from other schools would be able to come to that one school where the group is actually acting. And lessons support the curriculum. Yeah. And sometimes they're in the morning, sometimes they're in the evening, or at some point at 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. Some challenges, well, it probably sounds pretty ideal, but in practice, it's not that much ideal. Those lessons are not compulsory. They are not organized by all municipalities of Finland. And not compulsory also means that not children and not families are motivated to enroll into these lessons, and they don't want their children, they don't think that it's so important to go through these lessons. And some children start and they go there for a year or maybe half a year or 2 years, and then by the grade 3 or 4 they've had enough education in their mother tongue and they do not come to these classes anymore. Mostly it's quite often it is connected to this puberty, but not always. Some children already in the first grade protest and do not like the lessons. Lessons sometimes for smaller languages can be organized from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. For instance, it's pretty late time for one language group, I should say. And small languages, that means not so widely spoken in Finland, or it also depends on the municipality. For instance, English can be a small language in some place where there are not a lot of native language English speakers living. And sometimes it also means that they wouldn't even open those groups. So they have this minimum children amount of children to open some group. In some places it can be 4 children and then you can open the group and municipality would open it. And in some places it's 10 or 8 and it's pretty hard to find this 8 and 10 people, 10 and 8 students. And that means that probably there would be students from 6 years old to 15 years old, and sometimes high school students as well in the same place, all in the same group. So here we come with the highly heterogeneous groups. They can vary by size from 4 to 25 students in the same group, all different ages, all different study skills. The age also can be different from 6 to 19. if you have some high school students there as well. From the grade, so in Finland they start school when they are 7. So when the 0 grade is sort of a preparational class before actually the basic education starts. So at the age of 6, they actually haven't started the school yet, but they learn how to read in the kindergarten, for instance. And also the language level can be quite different. Some children speak it and write it and read it as their mother tongue and quite fluently. And for some children, it's like A1, so their dominant language is Finnish, and they do not actually speak the target language at all. So you have to teach them from the very beginning, from the scratch. And they have different study skills. Also, that means you get some special education needs students in the same group. Some children can work independently, and some children cannot, and get distracted very fast, especially if this lesson starts at 6 p.m. or something. Okay. So what does the native language teacher do at school? We travel a lot, first of all. So I have 5 different schools. Some teachers have maybe 11 different schools, so they have to change schools all the time. So they teach 2 hours in one school, then they move, pack all their bags, and move to another school. And teachers' working hours can be from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., for instance, and you get a lot of this free space in between while you're traveling or waiting for your lesson to start. And the native language teacher works with students, so cooperates with families and helps families a lot, and cooperates with colleagues within the school building. If we're speaking about working with students, so what does it mean? What do? We support students, evaluate students' development of their native language during the lesson, provide the opportunity to learn the native and practice this native language and culture, because for some students, especially if we are talking about this small languages, so-called small languages, it is the only place where they can actually speak this language. The teacher teaches the student according to his own or her own personal level of language. That means you can get some 10 different levels within one group, and everyone gets a more or less individual program for studying, individual syllabus. Then you have to develop students' learning skills, study skills, which is very important because within this heterogeneous group, I think it's really important that students can actually cooperate, do something together. And the second thing, they have to work individually. They have to be able to work individually, to wait for their turn, to ask for help if needed. That's very important. So we have to learn that in the group. We link the Finnish culture to students' old culture during the lesson, which is also important. Sometimes the teacher is the only one. If the teacher actually speaks both Finnish and the target language, this student's mother tongue, you can translate the Finnish culture and explain the Finnish culture to students. Sometimes they can protest, or they bring something into the classroom they have discussed together at home. And sometimes those are like parents talk or grown-ups talk, and children would be annoyed and say, why do those do it this way? And then the teacher actually has to explain and sort of sort it out and calm down and find some common language. So actually, I speak we speak about Finnish culture as well. It's not only speaking about your own culture, because I have noticed that students have difficulty speaking about Finnish culture, their everyday life at school, in their mother tongue, because they are so much used to speak about these topics in Finnish. They have to translate mainly, and they do not find these words to speak about holidays and their grades and their subjects. So they include these Finnish words in their speech, mother tongue speech, because they do not know these words. They're used to use these words in Finnish. Sometimes we help with general subjects and explain to students, get some support lessons in general subjects as well. For mathematics or something, the student is not able to understand that in Finnish, so we go through it. Sometimes they get some help from there. In some schools, they organize on a regular basis those learning subject lessons in your mother tongue. So the teacher actually would do something like class teacher work and do it in the student's mother tongue. Yes, and the native language teacher helps students to integrate into Finnish schooling system and society, and brings a student into a multilingual and multicultural person. So try to find to be balanced, a balanced bilingual sort of. Collaboration with homes and families. Well, sometimes we get these situations that the class teacher would run and shout for help. Please help, I need some help here. What's going on? I don't understand. Or the family doesn't understand what she wants, and there are a lot of situations that have to be sorted out. For instance, native language teacher is an interpreter between different cultures, so you have to explain to the teacher why did the family react in the way they did, or never reacted at all. We help to share information between home and school, translating from language to another, sending messages or calling the family if needed, and sort of we create a link between home and school. We help caregivers in learning how to use school electronic diary, and sometimes sort of bring the family inside the Finnish schooling system. We provide feedback to caregivers because sometimes they're afraid to ask for the feedback from their class teacher. They do not know the Finnish language. They're being shy and being afraid and shy of making mistakes in Finnish. So they ask the native language teacher to ask for the feedback and send it back to them. Yes, and sometimes we help to sort out challenging situations, and we go to this parent-teacher meetings, for instance, where the situations are sort of problematic. And a native language teacher is an important link within the school environment. So we actually help other teachers a lot in case if it is possible. So if my class starts at 6 p.m., there's no one in the school building, so the cooperation is pretty low level. I still can write or call teachers and use this electronic diary, but not always. This is for sure that the cooperation with other teachers would function normally only when the lesson is within the school day, not in the evening late at night. Sometimes we explain to children the background. For instance, why would the family panic if you say, okay, now we have to ask for help for some social workers, and you have to know that that families who come from Russia, Estonia, Ukraine, they're so much in this propaganda and yellow media. They read all the times about children taken away from their families uh, and and placed in this orphanage houses or whatever. So every time you say out social worker, they would think that you are going to take away their children or something. So you have to explain that to the teacher. So families can be afraid of the authorities and if they come from places with this background where it's okay not to trust the authorities and be afraid of them and be afraid to ask for help. Um, they can come from societies when it's pretty hierarchic. Uh, and in Finland, it's not. It's okay to just go and drink coffee with the headmaster and be relaxed, and everything is works out well. And the headmaster would come and say, "Hey, how are you? How was your day?" And it's not hierarchy at all. It's pretty easygoing. Uh, and for most of the families, it's so much different. Okay. Um, so a lot of advice, a lot of support is provided by native language teachers, and it's good when the class teachers can actually understand that and ask for help. Sometimes they just have no idea and never ask for help or cooperation. Okay, link is some examples. I did find some because it has been, my presentation has been probably pretty much theoretical. I did find some pictures for you to show. So linking to cultures, here is a poster we made during a Russian language class. It is about the Independence Day of Finland on the 6th of December. So all these different aged students uh, had their own assignment. The ones who were 6 years old and haven't actually learned all the alphabet yet, they had to copy some of the words and draw some of the pictures and then glue them. So they were doing this one. Older students, ninth graders, in the end of their basic education, um, they had to search and Google for some information and write some summary about it and also draw something. So all these different levels are presented. All the pictures, we had a group discussion. So what are the symbols of Finland? Now we have here movements, the flag, some Runeberg cake, some fish, and so on. And Karl Fatser making good tasty chocolate. And there's about the same. This poster is about the Independence Day of, I think it was some other year. Yes, I think it was some other year. This is an Estonian language group. And probably we had a larger group too. There's so many things. And actually, it is quite possible to teach children of all different ages and all different levels. A native language teacher is also a multilinguistic ambassador at school. So sometimes I organize some St. Valentine's Day and we invite some friends to our Estonian or Russian lessons. And we play some games and speak about and introduce our culture to the Finnish speaking students, which is really, they worked out really great and students love them. Probably this year we would just skip it because of the corona, so we cannot mix students between classes, but when we can, we would do that again, definitely. Yes, here are some examples about introducing Russian culture and Russian language in general Finnish speaking classes. So we try to write students' names, Finnish names in Russian, and they actually can figure it out pretty fast. They have been quite successful. Now some words about Finnish Association of Native Language Teachers, Oman äidinkielen opettajat, where I'm the chairperson and Cindy is a part of a board. Cindy, you can correct me if I'm wrong. The association was founded in May 2018, so about 2 years ago. They have been some attempts previously, like maybe 20 years ago, but it just all lacked existing. And it looks like this time we have quite a good background to work out different projects and be active. Nowadays we have 106 members, which is really good. We didn't expect to gain so many members. We thought 30 or 50 would be maximum, but mostly during 1 year we got more than 100. And I don't really have the statistics how many native language teachers are there in Finland, because some teachers, they teach in different, the same teacher would go to different municipalities to teach. So that means we cannot probably ask for the statistics from the municipalities themselves. But I think 106 is quite a lot already. We have some homepage and some handouts. And now we have here written in all different languages, native language teachers. And we cooperated with OAI, which is a Finnish teacher unit, working unit association, or working unit, or teacher professional unit, which is it. We organize some courses.
The union, teachers union.
Right, that was okay. Thank you, Cindy. Teachers union, and here we had last autumn we had some courses, and actually they're sitting in the front row on the very. It would be probably on the left. How do you see it? I don't know. I see it on the left. So not on next to the wall, but just on the other. It's the Minister of Education of Finland, a young lady, Li Andersson, who's actually a Swedish speaker herself. She's bilingual herself. And here's some, so I think I have done with speaking about this native language teaching and the work of native language teachers. And in the end, I have promised that I will speak a little bit about other ways of supporting immigrant background children within Finnish schooling system. So one of the ways to support children is to provide Finnish as a second language courses or classes for them. So they get some extra classes, but mostly it is being advised by the Assembly of Education that it would be the same. So those lessons of Finnish as a second language would have to happen at the same time as Finnish as a mother tongue for other groups. So they actually learn a little bit different things. Sometimes they have the same textbook, but with a version of Finnish as a second language, or some workbook separately of Finnish as a second language. They go through the language structures. The teacher who teaches Finnish as a second language, sometimes it's a separate person, and she has time to explain things, to work out things, to be patient with students. And she's also, this Finnish as a second language teacher often is a good colleague of native language teachers, because we all speak this multilingual language, and we understand children struggling with languages.
And Larissa, just so you know, you have about 10 minutes, and I just didn't know if you want to open it up to questions too from the audience.
Yes, I think I have just the very last
Sure.
slides here, yes. So the history is about Finnish, teaching Finnish as a second language. It actually has started about at the same time as native languages, so in the 70s, and native languages and Finnish as a second language are funded by the state. So municipalities pay just not a lot, and they get funded by the state. And who is the target group? Students who have moved from some other countries, and sometimes, for instance, the Finnish children who have moved, who have lived somewhere abroad and then moved back to Finland, and whose level of Finnish language is not adequate. Okay, probably I can have some questions here at that point. I think was it the last one?
Thank you so much, Larissa, for sharing, first of all, like sharing your work. It's amazing, your program, and what you're doing. So just thank you so much for taking the time. I guess, yeah, really appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions? I mean, this is a unique program to Finland. In the United States, we do not have anything like this. I want to kind of also, before we go into questions, really try to get, Larissa, your teachers for the next conversation, which is going to happen in 2 days with the UTLA and OAG having a discussion about unions. It's really important, I think, your program to get out there for people that don't know about it in different countries. And the only way I think to do that is to have them come, because I guess a lot of them weren't here for this conversation, to the one on Thursday. So maybe in 2 days, you can get maybe a few teaching different languages so we can have a discussion. Yes, Marcus, did you have something to say? Or anybody have any questions for Larissa? Oh, and Larissa, can you stop sharing the screen so we can see everybody?
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Sure, if I find it. Okay. No.
Thank you so much, Larissa. I have a question. What is the network of native language teachers around the world? Where are your peers, and how do you meet?
Well, since all the teachers actually, there's quite a lot of teachers in the capital district, Helsinki, Espoo. So we don't really have too much difficulty meeting each other, but still, since we have all these different classes and all different times of the day, now actually I think this Corona time has been very good for us, because we have found that we can meet distantly. We have already planned some courses that would take place distantly. And then we are able to get together 50, 60 teachers at the same time. In some larger municipalities and cities, they actually have regular meetings within the school building. So there would be, Cindy, probably you have experienced. In my municipality, I've been the only one native language teacher for a long time. Now we have already Arabic language teacher as well. So now we have 3 teachers, or even 4. We got another Estonian language teacher this year.
Yeah, Espoo has about 65 teachers. Probably 30 of them are full-time. The others are part-time. Helsinki probably has about 70 or more teachers.
Yes. But yes, our association, one of the targets, one of the goals was to organize this networking for teachers, because quite often they do not actually get a lot of support, and they're not do not get to meet their colleagues and their regular colleagues, Finnish-speaking colleagues, because they just have to pack their bags and run to the next school.
Markus might have been asking about networking around the world. Actually, they do this teaching in Sweden as well, but not a whole lot of other countries do this. Finland is way up there with this. Number one.
And one thing I wanted to ask is like, what I mean, because what you do is you're not just teaching language, you're counseling, you're helping other teachers, you're actually teaching different subjects. So what kind of background you have, or you just learn the as you go what you do, and do you have materials that government provide to help you with all the challenges of the teaching?
No, it also depends on the municipality. In some places, if you can find the textbooks to be ordered from abroad, then you can do that. I personally, I'm very lucky, so I can order all the textbooks for my students from Estonia. So I order Estonian and Russian textbooks from Estonia. Some buy them and order them from Russia. But I know that some municipalities would not allow teachers to order textbooks to each student, so they have to make all the materials themselves.
And the budgets are constantly cut, so we most of us have to make up our own materials a lot of the time.
Wow. I think
we have to
invest trying to
make it ourselves.
Right. So if you can get together with each other, easier and then share to the.
Interesting. Yeah. Pia had a question.
Hi, thanks very much, Larissa, for your talk. It's very interesting. I just would like to know, I don't know, maybe you mentioned it, I just didn't hear it, but do the mother tongue teachers or the native language teachers, do they need a degree like a Finnish teacher? Like in Finland, the teachers have to have a master's degree? So do you have to have a master's degree in teaching, or is it enough to be academically somewhat educated, or as long as you speak the language, that's fine? What's the...
And now, that's quite problematic, actually. Thank you for the question. Well, in Finland, there is a requirement that a subject teacher has to be to acquire a degree, a master degree in her own subject. So if she is an English language teacher, she has to pass this subject studies in English. Even if she can speak French perfectly, she wouldn't be able to be professional, qualified French language teacher. She would have to go for another set of subject studies in French. That means mother tongue, those native language teachers, they also have to have a degree, a master degree in their own language, specific language. Some of us do have master degrees from their own countries, but there are some others, and actually it's required to have a master degree in your own language, but actually Finland, there are no such subjects as Albanian philology or just Cindy, help me out. What kind of other languages do we have?
It's a struggle for some of the languages which are more distant and not taught in Helsinki University, because Finland always wants you to equate your degree from your own country to a Finnish degree. So often you have to continue pedagogy and things like this at university in Helsinki.
Yes.
But so it's for every teacher, it's a challenge and a difficult way to get to what Finland requires for these.
Yeah, and actually there are only 7 or 8 languages in which you are able to get this degree or this proficiency. Others, and if we have 55 languages, in other languages it's not even possible to get this proficiency in Finland, since they do not teach these languages as subjects teacher studies in Finland at all. So we have sort of a dilemma here. So it's required to have it, but it's not possible to get it. Yes,
Yeah,
so those
easy
teachers,
peasy.
yes, so those teachers, they're all lifelong
Struggle. It's a struggle for many.
Yes.
And it shows in the paycheck too. It's really a difficult struggle. But that's why we have our organization.
Yes. Hopefully the changes would be there behind the corner.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Kevin, did you want to say something?
Well, as I was walking back and forth, of course, to the laundry room, I was very intrigued with, I guess how the educational program is overseas, especially your region. I was wondering, have you ever had to, because I've had friends in America that have gone study abroad, or maybe had at a very young age had to go on to other classes. Have they ever had to adapt to, I guess, to such classes as far as learning Finnish, or how does that work if you have, I guess my question is, how does it work if you were to say someone outside of your country to come in and adapt to your system? How would it be?
Then they would go to Finnish for Finnish as a second language and start teaching you Finnish.
Yes. First of all is the language. The language is the basis for everything. If you are a grown up and you are an IT person, then probably that would not be such a problem, the language. But in all other jobs, you have to speak. And if it is an academic job or higher education job, then you have to write and read Finnish quite fluently, B2 at least.
All right.
Yeah. But for small children, if you're only going to live in Finland for a year, there are international schools. The child could go, for example, in English.
No.
And also, it's quite often that your degrees are not recognized in Finland. For instance, I have heard that if you have graduated from some university in the USA, and I had a Finnish person, actually, she was my colleague. She graduated as a physical education teacher in the USA. She had to go through 3 years of apprenticeship in Finland before she got recognized her papers in Finland. She's Finnish herself. And that's the problem. And if you come with papers from Syria or India, quite often you have a master degree from there, and it could be that it would not be recognized as a master degree in Finland.
Thank you so much, Larissa.
On that happy note.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
It was
And
nice to
don't
see
go
you.
anywhere, because in a minute, Tin will announce a magnificent movie, Blue Laps. And after that, we will have a Q&A here in this Zoom. So don't go anywhere, but go to the www.nolabelsnowalls.net to watch the movie.
Okay.
I'm going to put it in.
Should we leave the Zoom?
Don't leave the Zoom.
Don't leave the Zoom.
Don't
Okay.
leave the Zoom ever. But
how do we watch the movie? If
on
we
the
stay on
website.
Zoom?
On the website, Pia.
Okay.
Website. Yeah, just click the website. And Larissa, please try to get your teachers on Thursday for that event.
Unfortunately, I have teaching myself on Thursday late at night, so probably I won't be able to come. And for now, I would have to leave you as well because I have to prepare for my classes for tomorrow.
All right, Larissa.
Okay, see you guys. Thank you.
No, we'll stay on and then we'll watch the